Gemini, the sign of the sharp mind, brilliant communication, and endless curiosity. Always seen as light, intelligent, adaptable. The one who understands everything quickly, who always has an answer, a solution, a way out. But behind this strong image there is a secret. A silent loneliness that almost no one notices. Despite seeming independent and always in control, Gemini carries an invisible weight. They almost never receive help. Not because they don't deserve it, but because the world believes they don't need it. Gemini thinks fast, learns on their own, adapts without asking for help. They observe, analyze, solve. And precisely because of that, people get used to seeing them as too self-sufficient. When they feel pain, they don't dramatize. When they are overwhelmed, they don't complain. They rationalize and keep going. On the outside, light. On the inside, accumulating everything in silence. Imagine living with the constant feeling that you always help, always understand, always listen. But when you need it, silence appears. This is no coincidence. If you are a Gemini, or live with one, this doesn't happen by chance. There is something invisible happening behind the scenes, something few people have the courage to say out loud. Gemini carries a fast mind, sharp words, and a heart that feels more than it shows. On the outside, they seem strong, adaptable, light. On the inside, there is a whirlwind of thoughts, doubts, and emotions that almost no one sees. And that's exactly where the mystery begins. Why does nobody help Gemini when they need it most? Maybe you've heard phrases like, "You can handle it," "You always figure it out," or worse, "You change too much." Little by little, these words build a dangerous label, that of someone who doesn't need support. But the truth is, Gemini learns early to rely on themselves, not because they want to, but because they realize that when they ask for help, it rarely comes in the way they truly need. There is a deep reason why people pull away precisely when Gemini shows vulnerability. A reason connected to how they communicate, how they hide pain behind humor, and how they understand the world too quickly for those who move at a slower pace. Gemini sees patterns before others, senses shifts in the air, perceives unspoken intentions, and that makes people uncomfortable. Some people help those who suffer visibly. Others help those who completely fall apart. But Gemini suffers in silence, rationalizes pain, turns chaos into words, and moves forward as if nothing happened. And that creates a cruel paradox. The more emotionally intelligent Gemini becomes, the less help they receive. Now here's the warning. The first 4 reasons will already make you rethink everything you believed about abandonment, loneliness, and emotional strength. But the 5th reason, almost no one expects it. It has nothing to do with the people around Gemini. It has to do with a hidden gift, an energy that intimidates, a truth that, once revealed, completely changes the way you see your own story. If you are a Gemini, prepare yourself. What you're about to hear may hurt, but it can also set you free. Because when you understand why nobody helps Gemini, you finally discover who has always been by your side, even when it felt like there was no one. Do you want to know the 5 reasons why nobody helps Gemini? And why reason number 5 will deeply surprise you? Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your energy strengthens this space and connects us even more to the universe of the zodiac signs. Because Gemini always seems to know what to do. From an early age, Gemini carries the reputation of being too quick to get lost. Their mind works on multiple layers at the same time, observing, connecting information, anticipating scenarios, and creating solutions before others even realize there is a problem. This mental agility naturally makes Gemini stand out as someone who always has an answer, a way out, or a clever idea at the right moment. To the outside world, this builds a powerful image, someone who never loses their footing. What few people understand is that this ability is not born from comfort, but from necessity. Gemini learns to rely on themselves because they realize very early on that depending on others can be risky. They observe the environment, sense mood shifts, pick up subtle signals, and use their mind as a survival mechanism. While others ask for help, Gemini thinks. While others freeze, Gemini moves. This creates the illusion that they always know what to do, when in reality, they simply don't allow themselves to stop. This perception causes people to automatically step back when it comes to emotional or practical support. No one asks if Gemini is okay because they always seem to be in control. No one offers help because they believe Gemini has already handled it. The light smile, quick humor, and fluid communication act as invisible armor, hiding the mental exhaustion that builds up over time. Internally, however, Gemini lives in a constant dialogue. They analyze every possibility, anticipate risks, review decisions, and carry the weight of always needing to be smart enough not to fall. This silent pressure can generate anxiety, mental exhaustion, and a deep sense of loneliness. Not because there are no people around, but because there is no one who sees beyond the appearance of competence. When Gemini makes a mistake, because they do, like any human being, the impact feels even greater. They don't allow themselves to fail publicly, because they feel they would disappoint the image others have created of them. So they correct quickly, change direction, adapt, and move on as if nothing happened. This pattern further reinforces the external belief that Gemini is invincible, when in reality, they are simply tired of explaining their pain. Deep down, Gemini doesn't want to be seen as someone who always knows what to do. They want to be seen as someone who can also stop, breathe, and sometimes simply not know. But as long as the world continues to confuse intelligence with absolute self-sufficiency, Gemini will remain the sign that solves everything alone. Because they solve everything in silence. Gemini has learned that silence is often the safest way to think. Contrary to what many imagine, they do not talk about everything they feel nor share all their conflicts. The Gemini mind is active, fast, and deeply analytical, and before any word is spoken, a real storm of thoughts has already taken place inside. They observe, cross information, evaluate scenarios, and only then decide the next step. This internal process is so intense that, from the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. Solving everything in silence is not coldness, it is strategy. Gemini quickly realizes that not everyone knows how to listen without judging, not everyone understands their way of thinking, and not everyone deserves access to their vulnerabilities. For that reason, they prefer mental retreat over emotional exposure. While others externalize pain, Gemini internalizes it, turns it into logic, and tries to reorganize the chaos inside their own mind. Talking too much for Gemini can mean losing control of the situation. This behavior creates a dangerous pattern. People begin to believe that Gemini doesn't suffer, doesn't break, and doesn't need support. Because Gemini doesn't dramatize, doesn't victimize themselves, and doesn't demand attention, their internal battles go unnoticed. The world sees movement, lightness, and adaptability, but it doesn't see the mental weight of handling everything alone. Gemini's silence is also born from the fear of being misunderstood. Their mind moves in multiple directions, and it isn't always easy to translate that into simple words. When they try to explain what they feel, they are often interrupted, corrected, or labeled as confusing. Over time, they learn that it's easier to stay quiet than to try to be understood. Silence becomes a refuge, but also a prison. Internally, this habit comes at a high cost. Solving everything alone requires constant energy, extreme focus, and a mental vigilance that never turns off. Gemini may keep moving forward, but emotional fatigue accumulates. They adapt, change direction, find solutions, but rarely feel truly held. The silence that protects them also isolates them. Deep down, Gemini doesn't stay silent because they don't trust anyone. They stay silent because they've learned that when they speak, few truly listen. And as long as the world confuses silence with absolute strength, Gemini will continue solving everything in silence. Even when all they needed was someone to listen. Because intelligence is mistaken for coldness. Gemini is ruled by the mind. Their way of existing in the world passes, first and foremost, through thought, logic, and observation. They analyze situations quickly, separate emotion from action, and seek understanding before reacting. This mental ability, however, is often misunderstood. Many people confuse self-control with coldness, clarity with indifference, and emotional intelligence with a lack of feelings. And that is where one of the greatest misconceptions about Gemini begins. When something hurts them, Gemini does not react impulsively. They pause, think, observe the context, and try to understand the reasons behind what happened. Instead of exploding, they process. Instead of dramatizing, they rationalize. To those who expect intense emotional reactions, tears, or confrontation, this posture can seem distant, almost cold. But in truth, it is the opposite. Gemini feels so deeply that they need to organize what they feel in order not to get lost inside it. The Gemini mind works as a survival filter. It transforms emotion into thought so that pain does not paralyze. This does not mean they do not suffer. It means they suffer in silence, inside their own head. While others release emotions outwardly, Gemini reflects. While others seek comfort, Gemini searches for answers. This internal process is invisible, and what is invisible is often devalued. This misunderstanding causes people to pull away emotionally. They believe Gemini doesn't care that much, that they don't truly get involved, or that they are too cold to need support. And so, when Gemini goes through difficult moments, no one comes closer. After all, if they seem fine, if they seem rational, if they seem strong, why help? Intelligence becomes a barrier between Gemini and emotional shelter. There is also the fact that Gemini perceives other people's emotions with extreme ease. They read the room, understand nuances, and sense what is left unsaid. Many times they choose not to react in order to avoid unnecessary conflict or to protect themselves. This conscious choice not to expose everything reinforces the image of coldness even more. What no one sees is how much internal effort this emotional containment requires. Over time, Gemini learns that showing sensitivity can be seen as weakness, and showing intelligence as indifference. Trapped between these labels, they choose to maintain a rational posture. But behind that fast mind exists a restless, curious, and deeply sensitive heart. To confuse intelligence with coldness is to fail to see that, for Gemini, thinking is simply the way they found to keep feeling, without falling apart. Because they help everyone, but don't demand anything in return. Gemini has a natural ability to perceive what others need even before it is said. Their quick mind captures details, behavioral patterns, subtle changes in tone of voice, and small shifts in attitude. Because of that, helping comes almost automatically. The right advice at the exact moment, an idea that solves a problem, a word that clears someone's mental confusion. For Gemini, sharing knowledge, perspective, and solutions is spontaneous. They don't see it as effort but as a natural exchange of life. The problem begins because this help is rarely followed by any kind of demand. Gemini doesn't help expecting something in return. They don't keep score, don't make emotional calculations, and don't demand recognition. They believe relationships should flow with lightness and natural reciprocity. If they help today, they trust that if they ever need help, the other person will be there. But reality doesn't always work that way. Over time, people get used to it. Gemini becomes the friend who always has an answer, the colleague who fixes things, the emotional support who listens without judgment. But when the roles reverse, silence appears. Not because affection is lacking, but because no one learned how to take care of the one who always takes care of others. Since Gemini doesn't complain, doesn't demand, and doesn't pressure, their absence of request is interpreted as an absence of need. There is also an internal fear within Gemini, the fear of seeming dependent. They value freedom so deeply that they avoid placing others in the position of emotional debt. Asking for help, to them, can feel like imposing weight or obligation. So they continue giving, offering, and being present, even when they are exhausted. This pattern creates a silent imbalance. Gemini gives energy, time, attention, and intelligence, but rarely receives the same level of support. Still, they don't walk away immediately. They observe, analyze, wait, until, at some point, they understand that the exchange will never come. And then they step away in silence, without fights, without accusations. Deep down, Gemini doesn't stop helping because they were hurt. They stop helping when they realize their generosity has become automatic for others. The lack of demands does not mean a lack of self-worth. It simply means they believed for a long time that the world would work with the same honesty that exists inside them. Because the world believes they are emotionally invincible. Gemini wears one of the most convincing masks of the zodiac: lightness. Communicative, intelligent, humorous, and always in motion, they give the impression that nothing truly affects them deeply. To the world, Gemini always finds a way. Always discovers an exit, a new idea, a new path. This image creates a dangerous belief that they are emotionally invincible. This perception does not arise by chance. Gemini learns very early how to adapt. When something hurts, they change focus. When they lose, they learn. When they suffer, they rationalize. The mind becomes their primary defense tool. Instead of sinking into pain, they transform it into thought, into learning, into movement. From the outside, this looks like absolute strength. But internally, the cost is high. The problem is that this ability to move forward quickly makes no one stop to ask how Gemini is really doing. People believe they don't need comfort, time, or care. After all, they're already smiling again. Already talking about something else. Already planning the next step. What no one notices is that this constant motion is often a silent escape from their own pain. Being seen as emotionally invincible means not being allowed to fall. When Gemini shows vulnerability, many are surprised, minimize it, or don't know how to deal with it. They feel the need to quickly return to the role of being strong, light, and rational. And so, they learn to hide what they feel even more, reinforcing the very image that isolates them. There is also a specific kind of loneliness in this process. The loneliness of the one who is never cared for. Gemini listens, advises, encourages, distracts, and lifts others up. But when it's their turn, the world steps back, not out of cruelty but out of illusion. The illusion that someone so intelligent, adaptable, and communicative couldn't possibly be breaking inside. Deep down, Gemini is not invincible. They simply learned how to survive without support. Their strength was born from absence, not abundance. And perhaps the deepest wound is exactly this, being seen as too strong to be held, when all they ever needed was for someone to look beyond the mask and say, "You don't have to be strong all the time." Gemini is not strong because they never fell. They are strong because they fell many times, and got up alone. Their solitude is not a choice, it is a consequence. And their brilliant mind hides a heart that sometimes just wishes it didn't have to be so strong. And you, have you ever felt that no one helps a Gemini when they need it most? Share in the comments. Your experience might be exactly the help another Gemini never received. If this content spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any messages about the zodiac signs, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. Your energy strengthens this space and helps this message reach more Geminis around the world.